In this modern age of railroading, we rail fans have become accustomed to modern power, consisting of engines such as SD70M-2s, various rebuilds, and especially ES44 GVOs. Many of our chases and hunts for different units these days are for locomotives from the 90s, like the SD70 and 75Is, the Dash 8 Cowls, and various versions of Dash 9s, not to mention more modern units in unique paint schemes. We have also become accustomed to the GP and SD units that once worked the main lines, now assembling trains in the yards for these Class 1 railways. That is what made this chase all the more exciting. I was finishing up some work at Pioneer Acres near Irricana, Alberta, when a train came through. Naturally, I filmed it, but I was not expecting the last two GP units to be on this train. These would definitely warrant a chase, so we raced past Bicycle to a crossing just south of Bircham. This spot is nice and open, making it a great rail fanning location. The two Geeps in the consist were GP9RM 7077 and GP40-2LW 9601. I had seen these locomotives during a railfan trip to Calgary a few weeks prior to this chase on June 5th. That afternoon, 7077 and sister 7078 were working in Sarcee Yard, placing cars onto the many classification tracks. The pair had just finished doing the interchange with CP. These cars will eventually make their way up to Calgary Logistics Park to be assembled in mainline freights heading up the Three Hills sub towards Edmonton. GP9RMs were CN's version of something many rail lines were doing in the 70s and 80s, that being modifying the cab from a high hood to a low hood. This style of GP9 is also often referred to as chop nose units, as the modifications chop the nose down. The Jeep 9 was a locomotive that began appearing on many rail lines in the 1950s, and they proved to be very reliable road switchers. Chopping the noses down made the locomotives better switching engines, because the engineer could now see the conductor giving hand signals in a wider field of view. In the high hood era, CN set up their GP9s to run long hood forward for better crew safety and head-on collisions. Should such a rare tragedy occur, the crew would be protected by the solid prime mover engine in front of them. Canadian National made 4 sets of rebuilt GP9RMs in the number series 4000, 4100, 7000, and 7200. The 4000 and 4100 series units were designed for local freights and road switching service, as they were converted to short hood forward operations for better visibility when running on the head end of a train. The 7000 and 7200s, however, never received this upgrade. Instead, they retained their long hood forward cab control stand. Like the SW series yard engines, the logic behind this design was for better reversing visibility when switching. When moving forward, both the engineer and conductor would keep an eye out on the tracks ahead. The 7200 series locomotives were also equipped with yard slug controls, which made for more switching power. Yard slugs are engineless cabless units that are basically just a couple of sets of traction motors, controlled by a lead locomotive paired with the slug. This is a cost-saving measure that increases tractive effort for assembling long cuts of cars in yards without adding more locomotives. Today, CN still has a number of GP9RMs in operation, serving in train yards all across the system. These locomotives have become a railfan favorite, as many railways such as CP have rebuilt their Jeep 9s into locomotives more compliant with Tier 4 standards. Seeing two GP9RMs switching in SAR-C was a treat that has become somewhat rare these days. In addition to Jeep 9s, many 4-axled and even some 6-axled diesels have been demoted to yard switchers for today's larger trains. Among these units are the GP40-2LW, another distinctly Canadian locomotive. Here is 9601 hiding beside an SD60 in SAR-C that day. 9601 is part of 12 GP40-2LWs left on CN's current roster. As the train finished passing through the Range Road 253 crossing, I moved to my next spot to film it in action. This is a very popular bridge on the Three Hills sub for train enthusiasts and photographers. This is where the Three Hills subdivision once crossed the CP Langdon subdivision, which ran from Langdon, Alberta, through towns such as Irricana, Bicycle, Acme, Carbon, Kneehill, and Drumheller, before concluding in East Cooley. At the time, CP had operating rights on CN in and around Drumheller, and both roads once served the Atlas coal mine in the Drumheller Valley, which is now a museum. The Langdon sub was once part of CP's main line across Alberta, before being replaced by the current-day more efficient Brook subdivision through Indus and Carsland. Today, the Langdon sub is gone, but with the Three Hills subdivision still used by CN, rail fans can at least see the bridge being used, crossing over an abandoned track bed with a rather rich history. The experience is all the more heightened by catching a train with power you don't normally see out on the main line. The train we are chasing here this evening is CN A443. 443 is a northbound mixed train that runs between Calgary and Edmonton, Alberta daily. From the bridge, I moved a few crossings over to one of my favorite spots on Range Road 243, where you can see the train wrap around the area of Granger, Alberta, before continuing uphill to Swalwell. Further along Range Road 243, south of Perk Siding, there is a short stretch of track that runs right beside the road, a perfect place for a pacing shot, and I see no better train to pace than this one. Pacing has been part of the railfan hobby for years. It is where you drive alongside a train, matching its speed, to film it racing through the countryside. This form of videography has been actively used since the steam era, and shows no sign of extinction anytime soon. '77 and 9601 were part of the consist, but they weren't running or actually contributing to the train in any way. The pair is running what's called dead in tow, where the engines are just being dragged along, so today they are more like glorified freight cars than locomotives. The best part about 9601 is it still retains its original CN Sergeant Stripe paint scheme, which is quite possibly the best loved and most recognized CN paint scheme across the railfan community. At Perks, the switch was lined for 443 to enter the siding and wait for an opposing train. Perks is the only siding on the Three Hills subdivision that is large enough for mainline train meets. This means some trains could be sitting here for hours. Hopefully, CN will add or extend another siding to upgrade efficiency on this line someday. After a quick bite to eat in Three Hills, we made our way out of town, then over some dirt roads and hills, to a crossing on Township Road 324. This area goes by the station name of Equity. The train on the approach is A442. The sister train of A443 waiting in Perks. 442 runs the same route as 443, only southbound from Edmonton to Calgary. Tonight, 442 had an SD75I and C44-9WL, two locomotives that set CN apart from other railways' motive power. The WLs are also my personal favorite variant of the -9s, so I was pleased to see one on this train. Seeing as both trains today have the letter A in their train symbol, you may be wondering what it stands for. CN uses letter prefixes to classify their trains as to type, priority, and route. The A400 series trains are short-haul freights and are often made up of mixed commodities. A442 and A443 are exclusive to the CN Three Hills and Camrose subdivisions, between Calgary Logistics Park in Conridge and Edmonton's Walker Yard. They run on a daily basis. There was also a track foreman following behind A442. It must be really fun riding in those high rail trucks. The high rail likely dropped off in Three Hills as the train made its way over to Perks to meet 443. After Equity, we leapfrogged ahead of A442 to another one of my favorite spots just south of Three Hills. The Three Hill Subdivision has a lot of different grades on it. The tracks have plenty of S and swooping curves along them to give the line distance to better climb and descend the grades. These curves also make great shots for trains on the move. Both trains had clearance to their destinations, so once A442 had passed Perks, A443 could resume its journey north to Mirror for the crew change, and then onwards to Edmonton. I remained in the same spot to catch A443. Tonight this train had some of these Agrium hoppers on it. The Agrium company has recently merged with Potash Corp to form Nutrien. Rumor has it the new Potash cars will be green. I cannot confirm this to be true though. By this time it was around 9 o'clock. Which is golden hour during the months of June and July out here. The sun had dropped just below the clouds and was now shining through the empty auto racks on the end of the train. When A443 had passed, we leapfrogged north back to the same equity crossing where we caught 442. The lighting is perfect for northbounds this time of night, with the sun nice and low in the sky. The downside is the mosquitoes are relentless at sundown. Notice the equity grain elevator in the distance. This elevator is owned by Cargill and is regularly served by CN grain trains. Soon 443 peeked around the corner as it passed the hotbox detector on the other side of the elevator.
CN Detector, 3 Hills, 5-7. No alarms. Temperature 19. C. Total axle 424. Speed 16.
I didn't pan with the locomotives here. I was too busy fighting off the mosquitoes. Always bring bug spray if you're gonna rail fan in the evenings. I learned that lesson the hard way. With the sun going down, we decided to call it a night for this train chase. 7077 returned to Calgary a few days later after being serviced in Edmonton. I was unable to catch its return. I don't know where 9601 ended up. I assume it is now stationed at Walker Yard in Edmonton, but that is only a guess. I hope you enjoyed this train chase and maybe learned something along the way. Feel free to leave questions and comments below. I read and try to reply to as many as I can. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care, train fans, and I'll see you soon.